What up, everybody? This is the Dr. Football Ultimate Patriots Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Dennis Tian. How's everybody doing tonight? This is the place to be for 1 hour of commercial-free talk on the New England Patriots. Joining me, as always, the CEO of Hedge Better, Justin Fine, for this special occasion of the NFL season starting. I've actually come down to the Hedge Better studio in Braintree to record. Justin, what's going on, my man? How are you today?
I'm doing great, man. You know what? It's fall is in the air. We got football back. And I'm honored, Dr. Tian, back in the headquarters.
It's been a while since I recorded in person with you.
Yeah, it has been. It's been a little while, but I'm glad. It's no better way to kick off the season, I guess, right?
It feels good to be back. It feels good to be back here at Hedge Better Industries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we got a great episode planned tonight for everyone. Want to thank everyone that's checking this out. We're going to talk about the Patriots, everything that's happened in Foxborough, all the roster tweaks since we recorded last week. I got a take that I want to give on this schedule. There's been a couple signings, so plenty to go over in Foxborough. We're going to talk about Bill Belichick and his epic meltdown last night, and then we're going to look into the future again, and we're going to make some more picks for the upcoming week and the upcoming season of the NFL when we go around the league. So a lot to get to, Justin. And when I was on the way over here, stuck in traffic, I was debating about what to start with. Yeah. And then the guy in front of me was a North Carolina plate that said first in flight. So it said first in North Carolina on there. So I'm like, that's a sign. We have to start with Bill Belichick last night and that epic meltdown. And the way I'm going to kick this off for you is just very simple. Bill, what are you doing? Why, Bill Belichick, are you doing this? I watched that game last night, Justin.
Yeah.
I felt sorry for Belichick. He looks like someone that has passed his prime, that is like really, I don't know. Why? Well, the only thing he can happen to him right now is his legacy can lose. That's it. He took a huge legacy hit with the whole Tom Brady thing. Yeah. It was not that long ago that you could have very reasonably argued that Belichick was more responsible for the Pats dynasty than Tom Brady. And now that argument would seem outright absurd, right? Because his legacy took such a hit the last 5 years. And the only thing that can happen with this whole UNC thing is that his legacy can take another hit. Bill, what are you doing down there? You have absolutely nothing to prove. You're a legend. You're one of the GOATs of coaching. Move on, retire, ride off in the sunset, enjoy your life. I just don't get it. It's not pretty to see, to be honest with you.
You know, I don't get it either. We talked about in the last episode how, during his brief retirement, we started to see Bill Belichick, the personality, come out a little bit, right? And I really thought he was going to get into more of maybe like a broadcasting career or some sort of commenter, like analyst role, and like a Sunday NFL countdown, something like that. And I actually would have enjoyed watching Bill doing something like that, hearing him give his takes around the league and his expertise. But like, when we found out he was coaching at North Carolina, it didn't make any sense to me personally. I didn't understand it. I heard a statistic last night. They brought in 70. That's not a typo. 70 new players into the program, right? And I just feel like you're setting yourself up for failure. Like, you have no semblance of a team. They have no clue really who's doing what. It just, none of it came together, I think, in the way that people were hoping for, including Belichick in North Carolina.
Agreed. And I hate to say it, but like, it's obviously the returns are very early, but like a lot of what last night looked like and what UNC has looked like so far really resembles a lot of what the Patriots were like the last few years, which is like a lot of cronyism, a team that was not well prepared, a team that schematically looked like it wasn't up to date and was kind of being out-schemed by sort of younger, faster, more athletic teams and coaches. And it resembles a little what happened here in Foxborough. And it just makes me feel like, look, Bill, you've had your run. You were the king of the mountain for so long. You're a legend. Everything ends eventually. Has time passed Belichick by a little? I mean, you couldn't help but wonder that when you were watching last night.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, Did you watch right from the opening kickoff?
I did.
Okay, the first North Carolina drive, they looked good.
They did.
Right? They got the ball.
Credit to Belichick. They schemed that out.
They schemed that up. They marched down the field, instantly scored a touchdown. They go on defense. They force a 3-and-out right away.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, did he actually pull this off? Right? Is North Carolina gonna come out and shock everybody? Because TCU was the better team. They were favored to win the game. And I said to myself, okay, well, what's going on here? And then
you said to yourself, as a TCU bettor, by the way.
As someone who bet not only TCU, but the TCU alt line, I altered them from -3.5 to -9.5 because I thought they were going to get their butts kicked, right? North Carolina. And after those the first offensive and defensive series, I said, oh my God, maybe he's going to pull it off out there. And then it all just fell apart in epic like proportions. It was tough to watch.
It was tough to watch. And it's not just that they lost or even that they lost one-sided. It was just like, it was ugly and it was a blowout. I mean, I think there was 2 defensive touchdowns, a fumble and a pick six. The quarterback for UNC, Lopez, went 2 hours without completing a pass. How can you do that? It's just like insane. I would have thought Belichick would have had like a little bit of a what's the word? A little bit of a fetish for Brad Johnson's son because of the NFL connection. He's buried on the bench. They're starting this other kid, Lopez, who looked just awful.
Who I heard got paid like $4 million.
$4 million, yeah. Totally. And it wasn't just a loss. I think if they had gone out and lost like 27-17, I don't think anybody would have been surprised by that. But it was the fact that they got their ass kicked and they looked bad doing it.
So bad. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, we're feeling kind of what you said, which is like, why does Bill Belichick need to be doing this, right? And I actually had a buddy who before the game texted us because he had bet on TCU, right?
Yeah.
And he texted us, he goes, you know what? I cashed out the bet before the game even started. He goes, I can't root against Bill. I don't want to root against 100%. Bill, right? And like, I don't want to root against him. But like he's doing it to himself at this point.
Well, he is, and part of it too, Justin, is there's the on field stuff. It's also that makes it ugly. It's also the off the field stuff that makes it so ugly. And the way he's just like totally changed, and like all like the Jordan stuff, and like I know the post game press conference, one of the things people have been talking about today is he had this like huge thing of balloons around him, which is just like, it's like not the kind of stuff Belichick ever would have done when he was in his prime. So I just think it's really sad to watch this guy try to be successful on the field and to be like at this point in his life, like taking on all these like new ways that were the complete opposite of the way he carried himself for so long, and just like trying to like, I don't know, relate to these young guys, prove he's cool, prove he can do it, relate to this young girlfriend. Yeah. It's really not pretty to see. This is like a dark last chapter for Belichick. And it makes me sad because at the end of the day, like I love Bill Belichick and I respect what he did here. I value it.
Totally. I really didn't like watching it. Like it got to the point, like you said, where it was just sad, and I don't want to see that for Bill. But you know what? I guarantee there were 2 people who did enjoy watching that game last night. Oh, yeah. Robert and Jonathan Kraft. Oh, yeah. Huh? That must have been pretty sweet for them.
110%. I mean, he especially after last week, he throws that shade at them like we talked about in the last podcast, and like is blaming them for or implying that they were the problem. And then like he goes out and gets throttled like that and just looks so bad doing it. Is there any chance, Justin? Is there any chance that this is a one and done for Bill Belichick?
I mean, yeah, right. Why not? Honestly, like, if you're Belichick at this point, I mean, I can't see wanting to continue to expose yourself after this year after year. If you're the school, I can't see you wanting to expose yourself to this year after year.
Right.
So, I mean, I get it. They got a couple layup games coming up, but like if he drops some of these like cakewalks on his schedule and North Carolina comes out and, for all intents and purposes has a disappointing season.
Yeah.
Which, you know what, like, which would actually be kind of difficult because nobody expected them to come out and be world beaters, right? So yeah, I think there's definitely a couple scenarios in which both him and the school mutually decide it's not good to come back.
I think Belichick will be back next year if they let him back, but I look at it from the school's perspective, and you look at all the off the field nonsense and the way he's just like bringing this traveling circus to Chapel Hill. Yeah. And I'm like, if you don't produce on the field, Bill, watch out, because I would not put it off the table that UNC and some of the leadership there would just be like, this has been a disgrace. This has been a joke. You, your girlfriend, the cronies, all of it. And you won 4 games this year.
Right.
We're moving on. Like, I wouldn't put that out. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because, like you said, I would like to think he figures it out. He's got some softball games coming up. And I think hopefully he does enough to spare him that embarrassment, but I would not put it off the table.
I don't put it off the table. And I guess just to play it out, right? Let's say this happens. Is the Bill Belichick legacy like at serious risk now?
I think, honestly, Justin, I thought about that a little today. I think there is a floor to how far his legacy will drop. Like, people are going to look at what's happened the last few years as the sort of the dark last chapter. Like, look at I don't know, a great athlete, say that finished his career with like a few bad years at the end, right? But you're going to remember, as time passes, the prime years. You're going to remember the time where they were an MVP player or they won championships. You're not going to look like, for example, Aaron Rodgers. Okay, after this is all said and done, people are going to remember him for his highs and winning a Super Bowl and the amazing statistics. They're not going to remember the Jets and the Steelers years. You know what I mean? Do you don't remember Brett Favre for his time in Minnesota or the Jets? You remember for what he did in Green Bay. So I think with time, people will remember Belichick for what he did, but they're going to look at this as like the dark final chapter. So I think there is a floor to how far his legacy can fall, but I do think his legacy can take a further hit.
I definitely think it can. And I mean, like you said, I think there's a floor to it, but for the longest time, the conversation in New England and around the NFL was always Belichick or Brady, Belichick or Brady. And is there anybody who, after all of this, thinks that it was Belichick now?
Yeah, you couldn't make that argument
You
today.
can't.
You could have made it 5 years ago.
Yes,
You cannot make it now. You cannot
Yeah.
make that argument today. No, that's 100% spot on. I mean, and that's the thing. And you're going to hear a lot of people now that are just going to throw out there, hey, it was all Brady. Look at what Belichick has done since Brady left. And the uglier it gets, the more fuel it just adds to that fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get into some of the stuff in Foxborough, Justin, because actually a lot happened this week. We recorded, I think, on Tuesday last week, and the roster was finalized, and then it wasn't, right? Then they made some pretty big moves. So we're going to get into that. But before we even go into some of these moves, I want to give you a take, and I want to see what you think about this schedule. Because since the schedule came out in April, we have been talking about how this is an easy schedule and a favorable schedule. And I still think this is a favorable schedule. Yes, I think it's still, relatively speaking, an easy schedule. But I have to also respond to the way things have changed across the league and what I'm seeing across the NFL since training camps open. And all of a sudden, the way things are trending right now, I'm looking up and I'm like, this schedule is not as easy as we're all saying it is. I'm going to throw a few teams out there that I think are trending up. The Raiders don't look that bad.
No.
The Jets don't look that bad. The Giants look a lot better than we thought. The Panthers, the Falcons, the Steelers all look better than we thought. I still think this is an easy schedule. I took the over at 8.5. I still like them to win 8 or 9 games. I don't think that's a bad bet. But when we did the schedule show, we were coming up with like 10, 11, 12 wins. They're going to lose a few of these games that we thought they were going to win when we did that schedule show in April. This schedule, Justin, is a little bit harder than we thought it was going to be.
I don't hate that. I think you're right to say that. I think the Raiders are going to be a better team, right? The Jets have proven that they're not going to be a dumpster fire. We turned around a little bit on the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers being a total failure to now it looks like, they could be a borderline playoff team. The Panthers got some weapons. If Bryce Young can get it together, like they could be a formidable team. They almost won some big games last year, almost beat the Eagles, a few other teams. So it's like, let's put it this way. Outside of, in this, you could argue that, no game in the NFL is a layup, right? But outside of the New Orleans game, which we'll be going to,
right?
I don't think you can call any of these games a layup or an automatic win for the Patriots.
Cleveland. Well, let's be clear.
Even a Joe, that Cleveland defense is not bad.
Right.
If Joe Flacco turns the clock back for a game, that could all of a sudden
100%.
wind up to be a difficult game too.
To that point, right? We're also talking about a back-to-back 4-win team. So I don't care who you're playing.
Right.
There is no such thing as a layup or an automatic win for a team coming off back-to-back 4-win seasons.
True. And I mean, one thing that's also concerning me a little bit is, look at the health of the defense a little bit, right? You let one or two guys go. Christian Gonzalez now questioning how healthy he is.
Right.
Like all of a sudden it throws a couple things into flux, right? And if you don't have your number one cornerback healthy, it becomes that much more difficult to beat some of these teams.
Well, Christian Gonzalez is a big loss.
Yeah.
What is your concern level about Christian Gonzalez right now?
On like a 1 to 10?
Yeah.
I think I'm at I'd say I'm at like a 6.
Yeah.
I think I'm at like a 6 because I don't think what he has is super serious. I think it's an injury that can linger. And now he's starting to show signs of somebody who is repeatedly getting the injury bug.
Right. I would even go higher. I would go like an 8.
Okay.
I'm concerned because one, hamstrings are nagging injuries.
Yep.
And sometimes it's not okay. He didn't tear his ACL, but we've seen these stories of athletes that they're never right the whole season because they have that nagging hamstring or groin injury. And then number 2 is I'm starting to question his motivation to get back on the field. I'm sorry. Like he's in a contract situation. They cannot resign him at this point in his rookie deal. It's forbidden by the CBA. Yeah. But he may be, what's the incentive for him to really push himself to get back on the field at this point? And I'm starting to wonder, is Christian Gonzalez, does he really, really want to be out there? Or is he just kind of making a business decision?
I'm not personally, I'm not at the point yet where I'm questioning his motivation, right? I think if he is able to be out there, he'll play. I think he wants to play. I think he wants to be part of rebuilding this franchise and being a part of what could be a very good defense potentially. Yeah. But when you start to have reoccurring injuries like this, you question how, not their motivation to be on the field, but how seriously they're taking their health and their rehab.
Right.
And
how durable they are.
And how durable they are. When I see guys come up with injuries like this in the preseason and, leading up to opening day, it's like one of the things that comes to mind is, well, how seriously did you take the offseason? How hard did you train? How good of shape did you keep yourself in? Like, what was your status coming into camp, right? Like, were you ready to ramp up, or did you just lollygag all offseason and that's why you're hurt? Right. So that I question that more than his motivation, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree. And I mean, overall, let's face it, when he got hurt, which was like the second or third day of training camp, I mean, we were all like, oh, they dodged a bullet. We all expected him to be back. I got news for you. That was like almost 5 or 6 weeks ago now. So, I mean, we're getting to the point now where like he hasn't played or practiced in over a month. And even if he does play this Sunday against the Raiders, what's he going to be like on the field? Now, you could argue that the Raiders are not the kind of team that could make the Patriots really pay for not having Christian Gonzalez. They don't have a number one receiver, and that's a fair argument. But I'm looking square at next week against Miami and what Christian Gonzalez has been able to do against Tyreek Hill when he's gone head-to-head with him. Yep. And don't tell me that won't be a big loss if he's not on the field in Miami.
It could be a huge loss. I mean, you got Tyreek Hill coming up. You got DK Metcalf coming up. You got Garrett Wilson coming up, right? Yep. Like you got guys that are certified number ones 100%. That you need a top cornerback to be able to kind of try to neutralize the best you can. And if you don't, it's a trickle down effect where it just makes it that much more difficult for your defense to stop these offenses.
110%, Justin. So it's something that I think Patriots fans should be worried about a little is how much are they going to get from this guy this year? When is he going to get back into football shape? And when is he going to be the Christian Gonzalez we saw last year?
Yeah, totally. And I think it's a fair, no pun intended, it's a fair fear to have at this point, right? And so, I really hope that it's maybe a precautionary thing. Maybe it's not as serious as we're reading into it. I hope he's in the field for week 1. But if this is a guy who misses time this year, it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough for this defense.
I mean, it certainly knocks this defense down a notch or two, right? It's hard to say they're a top 5 or even top 10 defense without their best player, who's a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber player.
Yeah, and look, you also got, you got a lot of turnover on this defense too. And I know Christian Gonzalez is still on his rookie deal, right? Entering year 3, but it's like, you want as many guys back there as possible that have experience playing in this defense, in a Patriots uniform. You don't really have a ton of that coming into this year. So, I mean, yeah, I would love to see him back there. And I think the rest of that defense would like to see him back there. And not only that, look, I think Carlton Davis and Marcus Jones aren't bad second and third cornerbacks, but all of a sudden you start to get really thin.
Well, that's just it. Like, there's not a lot of depth at the position. And Marcus Jones is a great slot corner, but I don't know if I want him on the outside.
No, exactly. And I don't want him at the outside. I don't want Carlton Davis trying to cover DK Metcalf all game, So.
100%. Yeah, so that's a big concern. All right, let's talk some about the moves, Justin, that they made since we last recorded. Do you want to start with Kendrick Bourne and Javon Baker being cut the day, like literally we recorded the episode and then I think like 2 hours later they were cut. So like what are your thoughts on Bourne and Baker being let go so quick after the roster was allegedly finalized?
So I guess I don't really understand it. You know what I mean? To me, I think it's a little weird to finalize the roster like that and then cut a bunch of guys like the very next day. I don't know. To me, I guess it's a little counterintuitive. I don't really mind letting Javon Baker go. I'm kind of take it or leave it on him. But Kendrick Bourne is a guy that...
He signed with Philadelphia, by the way.
Philadelphia has very quietly gone and scooped up a bunch of guys who've been cut and added them to their practice squad and as depth pieces. Philadelphia is very good like that. But, Kendrick Bourne is someone who, when he's been healthy, he's been a positive contributor for the Patriots. Like, he's been arguably your best receiver the last couple of years when he's been healthy. He's a veteran leader. I really hate the idea of cutting him. Like, I don't think he needs to be your starter, but what's the downside of having him for depth in that room?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'm not surprised they cut Bourne because just it kind of felt like I was surprised he made the team. But I don't agree with that. Like I thought there was a place for him on this team.
Agreed.
And I'm surprised. I don't say surprised. I have a hard time understanding as well, like what the logic is behind letting this guy go. Like you need as many veteran receivers as you can get on this team.
You totally do. And I mean, look, like
he's showing he can do some things. And it's even just some of your depth pieces right now. I get it. But like Stephon Diggs, who knows just how healthy he is. I get it. He's cleared for week 1, but he could have a setback at any point, right? You got guys like Efton Chisholm. I know he's at the bottom of the depth chart, but he's banged up with the foot. Right.
One or two things happen, and all of a sudden you go from having what I think we consider to be a much deeper wide receiver room than before to all of a sudden very thin again.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I just have a hard time believing that Kendrick Bourne wasn't one of their 53 best players.
Exactly.
I mean, Baker, whatever, I mean, I don't see his career. He hasn't done anything. I think it's unlikely he will do anything. You want to cut him, fine, whatever. But Bourne, he was one of your 53 best guys. So I feel like that was a hard one to understand.
Yeah, totally.
But I will say, and maybe this goes in line with the guy we're going to talk about next, Jabril Peppers. Let's not forget, Vrabel has made a concerted effort to change the leadership. And I think that if you were a captain or if you were a guy that the previous regime invested heavily in, you've got a mark on you. And he's gotten rid of as many of those guys as I think he possibly could have.
He has, I get it, right? I understand what he's doing. It's a changing of the guard. It's a new era. You're trying to kind of rid yourself of the past and, the bad taste in everybody's mouth. But it's like, there's still a couple of guys that I think deserved spots on this team that were holdovers from the previous Patriots regimes. And I think Jabril Peppers and Kendrick Bourne are two of them.
100%.
You know what I mean?
You could have this, everything we just said about Kendrick Bourne, you could also say about Jabril Peppers.
And not only 100%, and not only that, but Jabril Peppers was a captain.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you let a guy go who was not only one of your better defenders, but he was, by definition, a leader on that defense and in your locker room. So I don't like the move. I really don't. You've already demoted Kyle Duggar. You got a bunch of guys in there that are, rookies and younger guys. Like, again, I just don't understand. You can say that Jabril Peppers isn't the best scheme fit, but Jabril Peppers played for a bunch of different defensive coordinators, a bunch of different teams, a bunch of different defenses. Like, you can't tell me that he wouldn't have found a way to contribute to this defense.
I felt like Peppers was one of their best defensive players the last couple of years.
He was. He totally was.
Yeah.
And his contract was very friendly. Yeah. I think he was making like $4.5 million a year, something like that. So it's like, I just didn't get it.
Yeah, it was that was puzzling. I mean, like the Bourne one, again, didn't agree with it. Don't understand it. Not surprised by it. But the Peppers one surprised me, and I didn't agree with it. Like, right. and it just made no sense to me. And again, you can't tell me Jabril Peppers isn't one of your 53 best guys, or that at some point in this 17-game season, when someone gets hurt or something, that you're not going to sit there and say you wish you had Jabril Peppers. And Justin, the only way that I can really make sense of this Jabril Peppers thing is to think that there was either something off the field, which I know Vrabel has denied, or there was a culture thing and they just didn't like the guy and they just wanted him gone. That's it. That's the only way it makes sense.
But if that's the case, though, I still don't agree with it. But the timing is just very weird. Why do it like the day after you finalize the 53-man roster? Like, that's what's not making sense.
It doesn't make any sense. So it just makes me wonder if there was an off the field thing or a personality thing. That's the only way I think you can explain that. Okay, one more. Tommy DeVito, backup quarterback signing. Now, this one I actually liked.
I love this one.
This is a huge upgrade. I think Tommy DeVito is a much better backup quarterback than Josh Dobbs. I think that if Drake May goes down for any extended period of time, I would much rather see Tommy DeVito running this offense than Josh Dobbs. I think they can win games with Tommy DeVito, at least certainly for a short period of time. So I loved this signing of picking up Tommy Cutlets.
I do too. I think he's going to be a great fit with this team. I mean, not only has he show that he can be not a serviceable backup, but a serviceable starter at times, right? Yeah. He's gone and he's won some big games and some big moments. And let's not forget too, I mean, I know it's the preseason and I know it's kind of a meaningless preseason game, but we watched him torch the Patriots in that third preseason game, right? Yep. He showed that he's capable of playing. I like Tommy DeVito. I think he's a good fit, and I agree with you. I'd rather him be my backup than Josh Dobbs, who I like too. I like Dobbs, but now I think you have two good backups on your
like
your
if Drake May gets hit and gets a concussion, I mean, hey, look, it's you need that kind of depth, and I think DeVito could fill that role really well. And I would also say too, Justin, don't forget how many teams the last few years have had to play three quarterbacks. Yeah, and just because your first guy gets hurt doesn't mean your second guy won't get hurt.
Exactly.
They had no third quarterback on this roster. So I think right now they're rolling with three. Dobbs is still here. So I like that for that reason too. Because now you have, look, Dobbs did not look good in the preseason. He too has shown that he can sometimes step in and perform well. And so I feel like you have two guys now that are sort of, relatively speaking, experienced backups. For example, we talked about the Miami Dolphins quarterback room last week, and you've got Quinn Ewers and Zach Wilson as your backup, two guys that have shown they can't win games in this league, haven't proven that yet. So we've got two guys, the Patriots got two guys right now that at least have shown they can win a game or two if they have to.
100%. Makes me feel a lot better about the quarterback room.
Absolutely. Oh, especially with this offensive line.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So last thing about the Pats, Justin, This, let's take a second to just kind of revise our prediction. We made predictions a few weeks ago about record and one loss and where this team is going. I'll say this, this wasn't a 4-win team last year. I mean, it was a 4-win team. It was a 3-win team, really, if you look at it. And it wasn't a 4-win team the year before. This team was better than that. Mm-hmm. I think there were some big problems with the coaching, with the quarterbacks, which really are two of the most important things in football. When people talk about, you think they're going to make a 5 or 6 win leap and how remarkable that is, my counter to that would be like, this really wasn't a 4-win team the last few years. This was, you know what I mean? This was a better team than that. So I think to say that they're going to make a 4 or 5 win leap, I don't think it's as remarkable as it sounds on the surface. But I am looking right now at a 9-ish win, I would say, is right where they're going to land. And if May is better, that will be better. And if May obviously tanks, it's going to be worse. But I'm going with 9 and 8 right now.
Yeah, I still am not changing where I stand. I think they're an 8 to 10 win team, and I lean, 9 to 10 with the potential of even getting to like 11. Yeah. If a couple things go right. I mean, we've talked about it. There's things they could have done better. There's areas that still need improvement. But is there really a grouping, both offense, defense, coaching wise, anywhere that they've gotten worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I agree with that.
They've gotten better pretty much everywhere.
Yep,
right?
I agree with that.
And so, it's not perfect, but this is definitely a team that I expect to take a step forward. And when you couple that with the fact that they arguably have an easier schedule than they haven't had in the past, I still think, they don't have to do anything crazy to wind up with 9 wins.
Well, let me ask you this. So for them to end up in that 10, 11 win space, right?
Yeah.
We all know that for that to happen, Drake May has to have a good year. We've talked about that ad nauseum. Everyone's talked about that. Besides Drake May, what else has to go right for this team to take that leap to like a 10 or 11 type win season? I'm going to give you 2 things that jump out at me. Number one, we just talked about Christian Gonzalez has to get healthy early on and perform at a Pro Bowl level. And then number 2 is, and this is one I actually believe is going to happen, Will Campbell has to be a good tackle. And I think Will Campbell is a stud. I am so out on the short arms narrative.
Yeah.
I think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, yeah, he's going to have some bumps and stuff because he is a rookie. And that's part of what happens as a rookie tackle in the NFL. But you look at the way this guy performed in the preseason, he's already a Pro Bowl caliber run blocker from just the first time he was on the field. And he's an above average pass blocker statistically throughout the preseason. This guy is going to be a beast this year. And every time he has a little hiccup or gives up a sack, everyone's going to just latch on to the short arms thing and another blow and draft pick thing. And I don't blame them because we all have PTSD from the last few years of Belichick drafts and Elliott Wolf and all the Matt Groh and all the crap they've drafted. But on this kid, it's different. I'm telling you, he's a stud. And I think that his development and him being that stud is a huge part of why, if they're going to be better than expectations, that's why.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, I think the health, on both sides of the ball, right, amongst their starters is obviously a big thing. I think that kind of goes without saying. They need to stay healthy. I'll give you another one that I think needs to happen, and I think will happen. And I think on defense, this front seven is going to need to get after the opposing team's quarterback. They are going to need to force some turnovers, create some long yardage situations, right? Put some pressure on the quarterbacks that the opposing team, and really just cause some disruption on that side of the ball. And I think you got arguably one of the best front sevens in the league. So I think
you need Harold Landry to work out.
Landry's got to work out, right? You need Barmore in Milton Williams to stay healthy, right? You need guys like your depth pieces, guys like Keon White to contribute, and you need guys like Robert Spillane to step up and do their job and stop the run, stay healthy, things like that. And I think if you do that, I think the secondary will be in a good spot. I think your defense will keep you in a position where you don't need to score 30 points a game as an offense. And so, but I'm optimistic that they can do that.
Milton Williams has to be the Milton Williams of Philadelphia. He has to be that game disruptor in the middle.
He does. And what I like most is that, like, similar to when he was in Philadelphia, he had a lot of help that made it so that he got some one-on-one situations. He wasn't like the focal, but you know what I mean? Like when you got Christian Barmore alongside of you, right? It opens things up for you a little bit, right? You're not going to have like an Aaron Donald situation where you're double, triple teamed every single play, right?
Totally.
So I think he's got that going for him. He's going to have some help.
Well, so Christian Barmore has to stay healthy. That would be another thing, right? Because to your point, we hear a lot about, Milton Williams played next to Jalen Carter. Well, you know what? Christian Barmore isn't, he may not be Jalen Carter, but he's pretty damn good. Yeah. So if Barmore and Williams are together in the middle, they're going to feed off each other.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll give you another one that's a big one. Yeah. They have to figure out this kicking thing. We talked about it last week, but if this kicking thing becomes a disaster, that's going to cost them wins. And they can't afford to give up. So if they're going to be a 10 or 11 win team, they have to figure out this kicking thing.
They do. And, I guess just one more thing. I think it's that much more important when you're a team that's built like this is, you look at some of the makeups of some of these other offenses, right? And some of the studs that they have, like, the certified, bell cow running back, the absolute stud wide receiver, right? Go-to guys that you can go to in the red zone, guys that you can go to in the goal line, right? That, like, hey, the defenses know what's coming. You're still not stopping them. They're still getting theirs, right? Patriots don't really have that guy, right? And so somebody, if not multiple people, are going to have to step up and prove themselves as reliable, consistent playmakers for this offense, or else it becomes a trickle-down effect where you're going to be kicking a lot more field goals, and then the field goal game becomes even more important, right? And now it can, it can have that snowball effect.
And when you say that, I'm sure the first name that comes to everybody's mind is Stephon Diggs, which I completely get, and you need him to play and not get injured again and be the Stephon Diggs of old, fine. But my thoughts actually go to Trevion Henderson as well. And the drafting of Trevion Henderson as really, I think, a huge piece of this offense, a huge asset for any young quarterback is a back that can take a 2-yard pass and turn it into a 32-yard pass.
Yes.
And Henderson is that. So he needs to stay healthy and be what we think he is for them to kind of continue to end up at a 10 or 11 win spot.
Yeah, totally.
All right, Justin, any more thoughts about the Patriots? Oh, yeah. Before we're going to go to the non-football topic of the week, and then we're going to get into around the league. But can we just kind of call this Patriots-Raiders game before we do that? What's your take on this game this week? What do you expect to see in Foxborough? Opening week, Pete Carroll, the Poodle, returns to Foxborough with Geno Smith. Ashton Genty's first game. That's going to make it exciting. What do you expect to see in this game?
I expect this to kind of be a dogfight. I don't think it's going to be a blowout in either direction. I don't expect it to be an offensive explosion. I look at this game and I see it being like a 2017 type ball game. Yeah,
that's so funny because that's the score I was going to pick.
Okay,
I think the Pats. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think they're going to keep the pressure off of Drake May. I think they're going to try and run the ball. I don't know if the Raiders are built to stop this running game. Yeah. And I think you're going to see the Patriots run the ball effectively. As long as they don't turn the ball over, I think the Patriots win this game. I don't think it's high scoring, but yeah, I could easily see like a field goal type game, a defensive type game. I think the Raiders will avail themselves well. I don't think this game is as easy as we kind of hoped it would be and felt like it would be when the schedule came out in April. But I think it'll be a competitive, close game. But I do see the Pats winning this game.
I do. I was going to say, it's not going to be a walk in the park, but I expect the Patriots to win this game.
Did you put your money where your mouth is? You take the Pats?
I have not made any bets on week 1 yet.
Will you take the Pats?
I will take the Pats.
I already took them 2 weeks ago, actually. And I think I should have held on because I think the line moved the other way since I took them. All right, let's talk about the non-football topic of the week, Justin. This is my question for you. My dog, my German Shepherd, got sprayed by a skunk last night, and it was an absolute nightmare. But before I even start talking or tell you about that, I want you to tell me, have you ever had an animal encounter? And you live in Braintree, you grew up in Braintree, you live in Weymouth, that is like super unpleasant or super frightening with just like a local like kind of animal you run into around here?
You know, I will say to go back to the whole, bring it back to the dogs. I was at a buddy's house one time and, the neighbor showed up with his dog, and I don't even know what type of dog this thing is. It looked like a grizzly bear. It was huge, right? And this thing, I get it. Some people are like, oh, they're just playful. But this thing is lining you up, running at you, charging at you full speed, jumping at you, knocking you over, right? And the owner is just doing nothing, saying nothing, right? And like the dog's not like biting you, it's not attacking you, but it's to the point where it's like, hey, people are getting a little uncomfortable. Yeah, let's reel it in a little bit. So I think as a dog owner, you have to understand that sometimes, your dog's playing, but maybe the other person doesn't want to be played with.
Well, first of all, who brings a dog to someone else's party? That's a huge, I feel like that's kind of obnoxious. And
Super obnoxious.
And I'm a huge dog person. But if you're going to do that, you have to know the personality of the dog you're bringing. Some dogs don't belong at parties. They don't belong in public. They don't belong near kids. You have to know your dog.
Exactly.
And Justin, when you get into these dog situations and obnoxious dog behavior, it's rarely the dog's fault. It's the owner's fault.
I totally agree. It's the owner. Absolutely. And that was the situation. The owner let the dog come to the yard. The owner just let the dog do whatever while he got caught up in conversation. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, look, the dog's still, I think it was still like a year old, but it's a big friggin' dog. Right. And it's just trying to play, but it's not appropriate at the time. You know what I mean?
I almost would even find it more excusable if you brought a kid to the party, because a kid you have to take with you. If you don't have a babysitter, you have to bring the kid with you, depending on the kind of party it is. You could lock the dog up. The dog can sit at home. It doesn't need to come with you.
No.
It's just like a total like showman move. Like, whoa, look at my dog. And
exactly.
Then your dog becomes like the albatross of the party.
Yes, totally. It was a big inconvenience. And I know there was a couple of the people who were a little uncomfortable.
100%. When the thing starts humping legs. And oh my God. All right. Yeah. So last night we had just a crazy story with the dog. So we let the dog out to pee. I let the dog out to pee like 8:30.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like in my house, just sitting there doing whatever. And all of a sudden I smell skunk and I knew the dog was outside. So I'm like, oh crap. So I run to the door. So get inside. And then all of a sudden, so she runs to the door. She comes barreling in. And then I realized it wasn't just that the skunk sprayed. It was that the skunk sprayed her. And there was like, you could see like the spray was like, she got it right all over the face, all over the front, everywhere. It was not like it was like a direct bullseye hit right to her whole face, her whole front, everywhere. It smelled so bad. Like if you think you know how bad a skunk smells, because we've all smelled skunk before. Yeah. When you get that direct hit and it's way worse. It was the worst thing I've ever smelled in my life. Then the dog was stunned. So she like rolled around on the carpet and she like got it all over the carpet. So now the whole house smells like skunk. So then I'm like, go back out. So it was crazy. So we had to go online and we had to like find out how to get rid of skunk smell in a dog. So we made this like tincture. It said peroxide, baking soda, and dish soap. So we're like out at like 9 o'clock at night now. We're like scrubbing the dog with like dish soap and baking soda in our front yard. We had to throw out 2 carpets because she got skunk all over them. The whole house smelled. The kids were crying because the house smelled so bad. Mm-hmm. It was like an absolute circus, Justin.
What was the outcome? Did the concoction do anything?
Nope. No. It helped, but it didn't. She still smelled horrible. Yeah. So it definitely took the edge off. See, so I put her in my office because I had nowhere else to put her. I wasn't going to leave her outside for the night. So I put her in my office, left her there overnight. My office still smells like absolute awful, like skunk, right? Yeah. But I had no choice. And we had to go get her professionally groomed this morning, which is probably going to cost a couple $100.
Did that fix it though? Does that like?
Well, I haven't been home yet. So I'll give you the verdict later.
I think it's honestly the most annoying part of that might be the carpet.
Oh yeah,
now, do you got to replace the carpet 100%. Now? Like that,
that's gonna be another couple $100 gone. Yeah. There you go. And it was. Thank God they were kind of like cheap online throw carpets that probably need to be replaced anyways. Like if we actually had carpeting, which by the way is insanity. No one should have carpeting, and maybe in a bedroom, I guess, but I don't even think that, right? Like. Carpeting is just like carpet. I just don't get. It's like such an 80s thing, 90s thing. Nobody should have carpeting anymore. And this is exactly why. Things like this. A carpet is just basically a filth absorber.
It's a mop. It's a mop that stays in place.
Stays in place forever. Yeah. It looks great for like 3 days. And then for the next 30 years, it's just a filth rag in your home.
Totally agree. Yeah. No, that's tough. That's very tough.
Yeah. So thank God we didn't have carpeting. We had like throw rugs, but they were both just like absolutely shot. So, and the poor dog, like she knew she stunk too. Yeah. She wasn't fighting the bath or anything. She just stood there and she took her medicine and just kind of like sat there while we bathed there for like 30 minutes in peroxide.
Oof. No, that's tough. Very tough.
Yeah. Well, growing up, living in Dedham or Braintree, like, look, there where I live, there are a lot of animals and like things running. We had a kid attacked by a fox in our neighborhood a few weeks ago. Like it was on the news. We've had people attacked by turkeys.
Turkeys are another one that are everywhere right now. Yeah.
Nasty animals, raccoons, coyotes everywhere, which people always have to go on the local page and post, coyote. It's like they don't bother unless you're like a cat. Don't worry about it. Yeah. But yeah, we have a lot of animals and last night we got burned by the skunk.
Brutal. Very brutal.
All right. Let's get to around the league, Justin. Let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on outside of Foxborough. And I want to start again with 3 into the future. I want you to give me 3 takes for what you think is going to happen upcoming. It's still the preseason, so it's your call. You can give those takes for next week or you can give them for the season upcoming, whatever you want. But give me your first one.
All right. I got a couple for week 1, and then I got one that's a season long take. So let me start with my week 1.
Okay.
The New York Giants will beat the Washington Commanders.
I like that take.
Okay?
Why? Tell me why.
A couple reasons why. A, I think that the Giants are getting a little disrespected. All right. I think that Russell Wilson is not a bad starter. And if they got to turn to Jackson Dart or Jameis Winston, you got two other guys that I think can go out there and play. They got a couple of weapons. I think they have arguably the best defensive line in football.
Yep.
And maybe a bigger testament to this take is the fact that I think the Commanders are going to come into this game and get caught sleeping. I think Jaden Daniels hasn't looked as great in the preseason as some people have wanted him to take, right? I think we're just all anointing the fact that he's going to come out and be one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. I think he still has to prove it. Terry McLaurin was non-existent this entire offseason. You look at what happened with a guy like Jamar Chase last year. It took him to like week 4 or 5 till he was actually contributing in the offense again. They just cut their starting running back. So they got, they got Eckler and a rookie that are going to be handling the bulk of the snaps.
Yep.
And I just think this is one of those games that everybody's thinking that it's going to be a cakewalk for the Commanders. And I don't see it that way. I think the Giants are actually going to come out and stun them.
I love that take. And it's funny because I was looking at the lines today, and I was trying to find that one game that sticks out as like, okay, where am I going to make that upset play or underdog play? Yeah. And that one did pop out at me. Yeah. One thing I'm definitely going to take this week before we get to the games on Sunday is I was going to take a long, hard look at taking the Commanders on the under for their season, for the team total. Yeah. And I just feel like they're a team, like, look, everything went right last year. Like I'm talking about a Hail Mary. They won on a Hail Mary. They won an extraordinary amount of close games in 2024. And I just wonder, are they going to regress to the mean a little bit? And then you wonder, is Jaden Daniels going to hit his second year slump? Everyone's going to get a second look at him. The whole McLaurin thing, I think, was a terrible look. You know, for the preseason, you don't need that kind of distraction when you're trying to make that year 2 jump. So I agree that's a great spot. Like that's a vulnerable spot for the Commanders.
Exactly. Look, it's week 1. And, if there's ever a time to come out and like punch a team in the mouth, they got the Commanders got no momentum built. They got a bunch of guys, that are still getting ramped up. And I think the Giants are good enough on defense and have a couple good weapons that they can make it happen. Yeah.
I like it 100%. Yeah. And if the Giants could just get representative quarterback play, there's so much talent on that roster.
There is. And there's really no reason to think that Russell Wilson can't go out there and play a good game. I think the Commanders' defense is a little overrated. I don't think they're that great.
Yeah. Look, the Pats torched them in the preseason practices. That was, you know what I mean? That week they were up here.
Right.
All right. My first take 3 into the future. The Dallas Cowboys are going to get absolutely throttled this week in Philadelphia on Thursday night. Now, look, I think they will rebound, and I think the Cowboys will have a respectable season under Brian Schottenheimer. But I'm sorry, there has just been way too much distraction. We're going to talk about the Micah Parsons thing in a sec when we finish this up, but that's a huge distraction. You just traded your best player, and it's not that you just traded him. It was so ugly. You've got a rookie coach that I'm not sure if he knows how to handle a complex locker room dynamic of how a team is going to react when one of your future Hall of Fame defensive end is now shoved out the door because your owner doesn't want to pay them. I think there are holes on that roster to begin with. Philadelphia is still a terrific team. Yeah. On the road, banner going up. I don't think Dallas has the manpower on either one of their lines to go blow for blow with that Philadelphia team. So I think Philadelphia will throttle them on Thursday night. It's a tough, terrible spot for the Cowboys. The Cowboys will recover, but this will be an embarrassing hit for them on Thursday.
Well, you know what? I hope you're right, because my 2 big leagues, I got Eagles defense and Devontae Smith as a starting receiver. So I hope you're right. I hope the Eagles do go out and throttle them. And you know what? I know I said last week that I could see the Cowboys going out and making it competitive, but the more and more I've thought about that, especially with everything that's just happened recently, I don't know. It's just becoming less and less likely that they're going to be able to go out there and hold their own.
100% agree with that. Let's talk about the Cowboys and Micah Parsons after we do this, because that's something we got to hit on. All right, you're up.
All
3
right.
into the future. What do you got?
Number two, and this is my second one for this coming week. Justin Fields and the New York Jets are going to go out and they're going to beat Aaron Rodgers and the
You
Pittsburgh
stole my
Steelers.
number 2.
Is that your number 2?
Yeah, go
All
for
right,
it. Good. So we're on the same
share
page.
that.
Yeah,
We're on
share
the
that
same
one.
page with our number 2. I think Justin Fields has shown that in any given game, he can't do it consistently, but in any given game, he could absolutely go out and dominate and take over a game. This is a great revenge spot for him. He's got everything to prove and nothing to lose. All the pressure is on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers right now. And we keep talking about how good of a defense that the Steelers have. Jets have a great defense too. So I truly think that the Jets got a good chance to go out there with nothing to lose and stun the Steelers in week 1.
I agree. And I feel like, look, this is one of those games where like there is a score to settle. And this game being played in New York with that crowd. I mean, look, there's a lot of people, not just in that stadium, but in that locker room in New York that are pissed at Aaron Rodgers, that have bad blood on him for the way he carried himself, for the lack of effort that he put into this whole thing when he was in New York. Obviously, he couldn't control the fact that he got hurt in the first game, but he did not put his best foot forward over those 2 years. He didn't sell out to be successful. They made a huge investment in him, and it did not pan out at all. So I think that is going to be a real revenge game for the Jets. And I agree with you. The Jets are not that bad a team. I don't like Justin Fields. I don't see it working out there at all, but there is still enough talent on that team that they can win. And let's face it, the Steelers haven't shown that they're really, even with Aaron Rodgers, a high-powered kind of offense that can leave Justin Field and the Jets in the dust. So I think you're going to get a slug it out, knock them down kind of game, a low-scoring game where the Jets pull through in the end.
I totally agree with that. I think, and I think it's going to be quite the narrative in quite the headline when Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers gotta swallow that pride week 1.
And I would say the same thing. I still think the Steelers will recover and have a very respectable year. I think they're a borderline playoff team, but this is just a very tough spot for them to open up a
super
revenge game against the Jets.
Absolutely.
All right, here's my number 2. I do have a backup number 2. I always am prepared. Okay. By the end of this year, this is a season one take. One of the real narratives in the league is going to be, does the NFL need a draft lottery? And that is going to be brought on by the pathetic New Orleans Saints, who are so obviously tanking for 2 quarterbacks that are looking like they're going to be at the top of the 26th draft that both have Louisiana and New Orleans ties. That's Arch Manning and Garrett Nussmeier. These are 2 of the best quarterback prospects maybe to come out in years, coming out probably in the same draft. The Saints have obviously tanking. You're starting Spencer Rattler and Tyler Ho as your backup. That's what you roll into the season with. That is a tank job like we have not seen in the NFL in years. I mean, it is so bad that the pathetic Arizona Cardinals defense is going to get drafted in most fantasy leagues this week just because of that week 1 matchup against the Saints. I know they got drafted in my fantasy league yesterday for that exact reason. So when the Saints pull off this epic bag job and are the worst team in the league and put themselves in position for the number 1 pick, people are going to be questioning, is it time for a draft lottery in the NFL?
I love that. I mean, I think a draft lottery would make things very interesting, right? It takes away the whole kind of ability to tank. It's funny because, in the NBA, you got so many games, right, that it's kind of tough to tank for an entire, what's it, 82 game season, right? Yeah. But, you only got, was it 17 games in the NFL, 18 games? I mean, it becomes a lot easier to tank at that point. And especially when, they're really rolling out there with nothing.
See, I don't agree with that. And I think it's easier to tank in the NBA because
you think?
Yes, football is a sport of the heart. It's a sport of buy-in. And how do you build how do you get guys to play football and then tell them not to try on a 53-man roster? It's almost impossible. But the cheat code is that if you put the worst team quarterback out there possible, the worst quarterback out there, it almost doesn't matter what anyone else does.
Well, that's kind of exactly it. That would be my one counterpoint is that, football is one of the sports like a baseball where, the pitcher, the quarterback are so important. You can almost say that they're more important than anybody else on the team combined at times, right? Whereas basketball, you got 5 guys who, for all intents and purposes, play a pretty equal role, right? In terms of contributing. So I do think that's, that's kind of exactly how you put it, is you got two guys out there who, don't know their ass from their elbow. And I think even if they try and play their best, they're probably going to, maybe potentially go defeated. They'd be lucky to win 1 or 2 games,
I agreed. And it really hasn't been a problem in the NFL. Like I don't think tanking works in football, by the way. I don't think it works. Like, I don't think it makes any sense to tank. We've seen way too many guys that we were told is, all world golden boy taking in the number 1, 2, or 3 pick or something and just completely fall apart when they get in the league. So, and the best player that ever lived was pick number 199. So this, I don't think tanking works in the NFL, but I do believe the Saints are tanking this year. And I think that this will be something that people talk about, because it's just so obvious that they have completely sold the 2025 season.
They have. And another thing, this was almost going to be one of my takes last week when we were talking, but I don't think Alvin Kamara is going to finish the season in the Saints. I think they're in sell mode.
Yeah.
I think, he's at the tail end of his career now. I think he's going to want to win. I think he's going to want to play for a competitor. I think Kamara, within the next couple of weeks, has himself a new home.
Yeah, so, fire sale. We've seen the trade deadline in the NFL be more relevant than ever in the last few years. So maybe. Yeah. All right, your turn. Number 3.
All right, number 3 is going to be, look, we've had the running joke on this podcast for the longest time, the proverbial talented loser, right?
Yes.
And we've had guys, in and out of the talented loser. We've ushered in new players into the talented losers. And I've said this, I flirted in the past with the fact that I think Justin Herbert's a talented loser.
Yep. We've talked about it.
We've talked about this. And I'm going to make it official that they will once again lose a big game on opening day to the Chiefs.
Yep.
And Justin Herbert
can't beat the Chiefs.
They cannot beat the Chiefs. He can not just the Chiefs, but he cannot win big games, right? He's not a big game player.
Right.
You've seen it in the regular season in big games, and you've seen it in the playoffs in big games. And I think that this Chargers team is going to miss the playoffs. I think that they'll be hovering around 500. I think they could even go below 500.
Yeah.
I think they miss the playoffs, and I think this is the year that I can finally lock Justin Herbert into the talented loser spot without thinking twice about it.
He has earned his TL card.
He has.
He will earn his TL card this year if he hasn't already.
Yes.
I don't hate that. And I think that, the Joe Alt injury was sneaky one of the most important, if not the most important injury in the NFL so far this year, the left tackle for the Chargers. And, you're taking a guy that's a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. And I think that when you look at Justin Herbert in his career and what he is, he really needs that running game. They drafted Omari and Hampton in the second round. I mean, this was a team that I think was going to play hardball ball, win with the running game, try not to put too much pressure on Herbert because that's when he clearly does his best. And when Alt goes out, that whole thing changes. Now they're kind of back to 2 years ago and relying on Herbert for anything. I don't think it goes well for them.
And he doesn't have the weapons to do that. I love Lad McConkey, but they're bringing back in a 34-year-old Keenan Allen. You got what's his name? The bust from TCU with Quentin Johnson.
Yeah.
You drafted that rookie, Trey Harris, who has been kind of underwhelming by all accounts.
Right.
So it's like you don't have the weapons to go out there for Justin Herbert to have a Joe Burrow type of season. You know what I mean? So I think and I think they're in a tough division. I think that's one of the toughest divisions in football. We just talked about how the Raiders are no slouch, and then you got the Broncos and you got the Chiefs in that division. They got 6 tough games just in their own AFC West. And I think it's not going to be an easy year for them.
When you broke out the talented loser card, I thought you were going on our favorite podcast whipping boy, Trevor Lawrence direction, the president of the Talented Loser Club. But you know what's amazing? Just judging from my fantasy draft last night, how many people still buy into Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence still to this day on promissory greatness? It's unbelievable.
Dude, I'm still seeing people that I respect their opinions, like in the media, talking about Jacksonville like winning the AFC South and being like a 10-11 win team this year. And I'm like, what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Right. So I know some people are still holding on to that, but I've firmly locked into, there's no question in my mind, he is a talented loser. Yeah. Whereas Justin Herbert, I think you could at least make an argument that there was a sliver of hope, but I think that sliver of hope shrivels away this year.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, Trevor Lawrence is the president of the Talented Loser
Yes.
Club. I'd say Herbert is more just like an adjunct member right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
but
absolutely.
that could change. Maybe he'll be the vice president by the end of the year.
Right.
Okay, here's my number 3. Again, favorite podcast whipping boy, but I'm sorry. On Tuesday morning, one of the real narratives in this league is going to be the ability of Brian Flores and this Vikings defense to make Caleb Williams look flustered. I can't wait to watch this. Like, Flores is a brilliant defensive coach, and Williams is absolutely not up to the task of matching with him. And again, from my fantasy draft, I can't believe how many people still are buying into Caleb Williams and the way the Bears went off the board, the way where Williams went off the board. Fine. We are going to see on Monday night Brian Flores thwart him, make him look bad, make him turn the ball over, make him run backwards, make him run around in the pocket, make him hold the ball too long, all the things that he's been doing since college. Flores knows what he's doing. Flores knows how to get it out of him. And the narrative on Tuesday is going to be that Brian Flores out chess mastered Caleb Williams. It was never a fair fight. It's not a fair fight, but that will be one of the narratives on Tuesday.
I love that. You don't got to convince me. We've said it since day one. Caleb Williams is a talented loser. In talented loser is even generous because I'm still not convinced just how much talent he actually
100%.
has. But I know everyone is like saying this is going to be Caleb's year to turn it around. He's got all the opportunities, all the pieces, from the coach to his weapons to his line, yada yada. He doesn't got it.
Right.
He's not that dude. And I think you're right. Prime time. I love opening the season in prime time with all that pressure against a guy like Brian Flores and a Vikings defense who was very good last year.
Yes.
I think you're 100% right.
I mean, who better to pop the bubble, the preseason media, Caleb Williams bubble that just like it got deflated by the end of last year because he was so bad at times. And they've just spent the last 9 months inflating it again. And who a better person in week 1 on national television to pop that bubble again than Brian Flores?
Totally. I'm very much looking forward to that. And that is a game that I will 100% be putting my money where my mouth is because I think the line is going to be very favorable for anyone who wants to take the Vikings.
Absolutely. And that, I mean, that's a great, I think, Monday night game to start the year off with.
Yeah.
It's not a doubleheader this year. It's just one Monday night game, right?
It is just one Monday night game.
I like those Monday night doubleheaders.
I do too. Yeah, but no, they're just going with one. And I think it's in Chicago too.
It is in Chicago.
Yeah,
it's on grass. If this game was in Minnesota, like that would be even, then I would say bet the farm on Minnesota. But even in Chicago, I still like what Flores can do. Okay, before we wrap it up, Justin, the biggest story in the league this week outside of Foxborough was the Micah Parsons trade. I got a couple takes we can go through. We'll take a few minutes on this and then we'll wrap it up. Number one is, look, I don't oppose that the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons. In fact, I would almost argue they had to. And we talked about this, I think, last year when they signed CeeDee Lamb. And we specifically talked about how are they going to sign Parsons after this CeeDee Lamb contract? They're going to be too top heavy. So I get it. My problem was the fact that Jerry Jones mangled this. Because if you're the GM and you're a good GM, you have to know the position you're in and you have to have the foresight to make this trade, to execute this trade in March when the market is bigger. When you wait till the last week of August to make this trade, then you have taken the amount of suitors and you have reduced them. And so you have reduced the market. You have reduced your return. And my problem with this trade isn't that they traded Micah Parsons because they needed to restructure that roster. They were never going to win the Cowboys as is. My problem is they didn't get enough back. So I think Jerry Jones mangled this.
I was just going to ask you what your thoughts were in terms of what Dallas got back. In, look, 2 first round picks, Kenny Clark, like for somebody else, that's a great haul.
Yeah.
But for Micah Parsons, I still think you undersold him. Like I think, and the one thing I will say about this trade is I actually love the landing spot for him. I love him going to Green Bay. I think that's an organization that's ready to win now. I think they have a good team. I think like he's a much needed piece to that Green Bay defense and that front seven. I'm just seeing now too that he's hurt. He's going to need like an epidural in his back, which is like
bad sign.
Yeah, which is like an awful sign.
Awful sign.
But I mean, if he is able to recover and be healthy, I think he could be a huge contributor. And look, if you talk about a defense in a team that's going to need it, the NFC North is kind of, a pretty competitive,
Very
division.
competitive.
You got the Vikings, you got the Lions. I mean, I know we're not super high on Caleb Williams, but even if he can be average, that could be a good Bears offense. So yeah, I think I love the landing spot for Michael Parsons, but I totally agree. The Cowboys didn't get enough back for him. It was a bad look for Jerry Jones. And I think it's just super weird now again to see that he needs an epidural to go out and play week 1.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that's weird about that situation.
Well, first of all, the 2 first-round picks are going to be end of the first-round picks,
Right.
most likely, because the Green Bay should be a playoff team.
Right.
So I think you have to consider that into the math. And look, I like Clark. I think he's exactly what the Cowboys need to kind of restructure that roster. So I like that pick, but you got to get a couple more mid-round picks in return, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, as for the Green Bay side of this, I've kind of thought about this a lot this week. And I just feel like, first of all, I think a few years from now, the Cowboys will be seen as the winner of this trade. So I don't agree with you that I like this move for Green Bay. I don't know if this. I get why Green Bay did it, and I like the aggressiveness. I like the boldness, and if it works out, yeah, it's got a super high ceiling. But how many times have we seen like that big move just like blow up in teams' faces? They really kind of mortgage their future for it. They're paying him a ton. He's injured right now. He's moving to grass from turf. I just think this is going to be more like a lose-lose when it's all said and done. I don't think either team or either side will necessarily benefit hugely from this trade.
So I think that's very realistic. The reason why I say I like the landing spot in Green Bay is because, we talk about all the time teams that could have done more.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think if you're a team like Green Bay that's in a tough division, that has a pretty good team that's like ready to win now. You got a lot of talent that's still on rookie contracts, including, your wide receivers and some of those guys on defense. It's like, I like the fact that they're willing to do more in order to win now. Will it work out for them? Who knows? And again, him not even being healthy right now is a sign that maybe there'll be trouble in paradise. But I at least like that they were willing to take a chance to do more.
Well, to that point, right? So they were the third best team in the division before this trade. And you could spin this either way, because is it worth it to make a move like this and mortgage the future, and you still aren't even the clear-cut best team in your own division, but at least now you're on even playing field probably with Detroit and Minnesota. Now you could argue Green Bay is going to win that division. You could also argue they're the third best team in that division. So when you look at what they gave up and what they're paying him, is that worth it? I don't know. I mean, you could spin that either way, but I will say, like, I love the aggressiveness too. That's what I like about it. But I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, look at what you just gave up, and I still think you're the second or third best team in your own division. Yeah.
And well, look, another reason why I like it is because he could have wound up in the AFC.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? So I at least like that he's not, he could have wound up in Buffalo or, Miami, somewhere where you're going to have to, even just somewhere else in the AFC, we're going to have to see him, regularly. So I at least like the fact that we kept him in the NFC.
Well, that's another thing the Cowboys screwed up. How do you trade him in your own conference?
In your own conference, right.
I think that's an epic screw up.
Yeah. Yeah. I really wonder who else was in serious contention for him. I haven't heard much about that.
Well, this is what Jones mangled so bad, though, because like he probably didn't have anyone else that if he had done this in March, he would have been able to trade him out of conference. He waited till the last minute. And it's funny because like at this point, after this whole Micah Parsons thing, like I think Jerry Jones comes out as looking like a fool, frankly, looking like, like his best days are behind him. And look, his star fell. Like, is there any doubt right now why the Cowboys haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 something years? It's because of Jerry Jones.
It's 100% because of Jerry Jones. And look, one thing I don't think you can doubt about Jerry Jones is his passion for the game and for his team.
Yep.
But I think we've said for a long time that he's more of a hindrance running that team than he is a help.
Yep.
So, and I think that was just a perfect kind of microcosm, this whole little transaction of what the problem is with Jerry Jones.
Right.
And that's sometimes he sticks his neck into places that he really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And he creates more trouble than good.
And the attitude, like you could tell he has this attitude of like, he's the owner and they're the players, and like this almost like this air of looking down upon the players and like this air of superiority, this air of entitlement. And it's like, this is the problem with the Dallas Cowboys. The fact that your owner, who is also your GM, thinks this way about the players. Like he is, I hate to say this, but like he is the plantation owner and they're all like his servants. Like that's how he came off in all this. If you listen to some of his comments, and it was disgraceful, frankly. And I think that a real window into why that organization has consistently fallen over the last 3 decades, and why I think they're so far away right now from a Super Bowl. And they're not close. Like they have to totally restructure and rebuild over the next 2 or 3 drafts because they have so many holes on that roster. You're seeing why, because the GM is just totally out of touch with the reality.
Totally. And you know what for me, what the cherry on top of this whole situation was, and I don't know, maybe it was just his Southern accent, but he kept calling him Michael in that last.
Right. It's disrespectful.
It's just like, that to me is just the cherry on top of the entire thing. It's like, it's disrespect. And it's, at the end of the day, it just shows that like, you're kind of out of touch and you're just like, you're involved in a situation that you shouldn't be.
If you call someone by the wrong name once, okay, fine. When you consistently do it, I'm sorry. That's just unacceptable. It's disrespectful. And you can see, I totally understand why Micah Parsons felt disrespected. When you, as an owner, want to circumvent someone's legal representation because it serves your interest. Why? So your interest is more important than their interest. Right. They don't have a right to have their representative at the table. You're an experienced negotiator. You've been a businessman for 4 or 5 decades. You've done all kinds of crazy high-level deals, as much as anyone in this country, in this world has done. And you got a 23-year-old kid on the other side of the table, and you think that's a level playing field to negotiate with him? That shows you how twisted his mentality is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He butchered the situation. And look, I think this Cowboys team is in a difficult spot because they gave Dak Prescott they backed the Brinks truck up for him. They gave CeeDee Lamb a big contract. And then a few days later, after they trade Micah Parsons, they go and they extend that Deron Bland kid, the cornerback, who was like, he's okay, but do I think he's a $90 million contract player?
100%. What did you think? So. When I saw that, you know what I thought? Fan service. Yeah. Fan service. You're trying to play to your base because everyone's pissed because you just dropped the ball. So
exactly. But that, to me, is just another contract that's going to hinder them from being able to rebuild this team. And they got a lot of holes.
I mean, there's no question the Cowboys are the most valuable franchise, and they're an awesome brand. Don't get me wrong. But Jerry Jones did tremendous damage to Dallas's brand in this whole thing the last few months. He really did.
100%. Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts, Justin? I'm going to wrap it up. Any final takes before we head into another 2025 NFL season, man? It feels great to say.
It does. 48 hours away from meaningful football. Yeah. It's, it'll be fun, man. I think it's, just like every season, you get to this point and it almost has that like Christmas morning feeling. You know what I mean? You waited a long time. You saw how things played out all across the league, your team, etc. And finally, it's put up or shut up time.
Yeah, the NFL's ultimate meritocracy.
Yeah.
Are they doing that chain measurement thing that they did in the preseason? Was that an experiment, or is that something they're really doing? Because that's going to drive us. That's going to drive me.
See, I don't know. I don't know this for a fact, so don't quote me on this. But I heard that was one of the new changes this year.
Yeah, it might be.
Which I can't stand already.
It was awful. Yeah. It was awful.
Yeah. There's already too many times where I think, you hear that the play's under review and you're like, as a fan, but like this is just going to make delays in the speed of the game. And it's going to be unbearable after a while. Absolutely
unbearable. It's just going to slow things down over like minutia. Oh man, it's going to be real. But other than that, I mean, look, we're all excited. It is like Christmas Eve if you're a football fan. So enjoy it, everyone. We will be back next week to talk about everything that happens. I'm going to Foxborough on Sunday. I can't wait to be in the stadium for the start of a new era, Mike Vrabel era. I'm sure it will be exciting. I hope we come back on Tuesday and we can talk about a Patriots win and not a loss, because if they lose this game, I really think, it's going to be just like more of the same and have a really bad vibe around this team. So let's hope they pull it out. I want to thank everyone that listened to this episode of the podcast. Please find us on Facebook, find us on YouTube, and take care, be well, and we'll catch you next week, everyone.